The billionaire handed his unlimited credit card to the poor little girl as a test, expecting her to buy toys or candy. But when he saw what she actually purchased, his heart shattered completely. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Michael Thompson adjusted his Italian silk tie as he stepped out of his black Bentley onto the busy sidewalk of downtown Chicago. At 35, he commanded a tech empire worth $12 billion, but today felt different, emptier somehow. The November wind cut through his expensive coat as he walked toward his favorite coffee shop, the same route he'd taken every morning for the past 3 years. That's when he saw her. A small figure huddled against the brick wall of the old bank building, wrapped in a thin purple jacket that had seen better days. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old, with tangled brown hair and eyes that held far too much wisdom for someone so young. In her tiny hands, she held a cardboard sign that simply read, "Please help, hungry." Michael had passed hundreds of homeless people over the years, always too busy, always too important to stop. But something about this little girl made his steps slow, then stop completely. Maybe it was the way she didn't look up at him with desperate eyes like the others. Instead, she sat quietly, almost dignified in her small suffering. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Michael found himself asking, crouching down to her level. She looked up, startled. "Emma," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the city noise. "Emma, that's a beautiful name." Michael studied her face, dirt-smudged but with an innocence that reminded him of something he'd lost long ago. "Are you here alone?" She nodded, clutching her sign tighter. "My foster mom. She said I had to earn my keep or find somewhere else to go." The words hit Michael like a physical blow. How could anyone put a child, a baby, out on the streets? In that moment, an idea formed in his mind. Not charity, a test. He wanted to see what this child would do with unlimited power, unlimited resources. Would she be like everyone else in his life? Greedy, selfish, taking whatever she could get? Michael reached into his wallet and pulled out his black American Express card. The one with no spending limit. The one that could buy anything money could buy. Emma's eyes widened as she saw the sleek metal card. "Emma, I want you to have this," he said, placing the card in her small palm. "You can buy anything you want with it, anything at all." Her fingers trembled as she held the card. "But mister, I don't understand. This isn't mine." "It is now. Use it however you think is best." But Michael stood up, his heart pounding with an emotion he couldn't name. "There's a shopping center 2 blocks that way. The card works anywhere." Before Emma could protest further, Michael walked away, but not far. He ducked into the coffee shop across the street, positioning himself by the window where he could watch. He pulled out his phone and quickly accessed the security cameras from the shopping center, a perk of being part owner of the development company that built it. What happened next would either confirm his cynical view of human nature or change everything he thought he knew about the world. As Emma stood up, still clutching his card with both hands, Michael felt his breath catch in his throat. For the first time in years, he genuinely cared about what someone else might do. Emma stared at the mysterious black card in her trembling hands as she walked slowly toward the shopping center. The weight of it felt heavier than anything she'd ever held. People rushed past her on the sidewalk, businessmen in expensive suits, women carrying designer purses, teenagers laughing into their phones, but she barely noticed. Her mind was spinning with possibilities and fear. The sliding glass doors of Riverside Shopping Center opened with a whoosh, and Emma stepped into a world she'd only seen through windows. Bright, fluorescent lights made everything sparkle. Clean marble floors reflected her small figure, and the smell of fresh bread from the bakery made her stomach growl so loudly she was embarrassed. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Not since Mrs. Peterson had screamed at her for accidentally breaking a coffee mug. From his coffee shop across the street, Michael pulled up the security feeds on his phone with shaking fingers. Camera 1 showed Emma standing just inside the entrance, looking completely overwhelmed by the bustling crowd around her. A security guard noticed her and started walking in her direction, probably thinking she was a lost child or potential shoplifter. Camera 2 captured Emma walking slowly past the massive toy store, her eyes wide as she took in the towering displays of dolls, video games, and stuffed animals. A electronic dinosaur roared to life as she passed, making her jump backward. For a moment, she pressed her face against the glass, watching other children inside begging their parents for the latest gadgets. Camera 3 showed her pause at the electronics store, staring at the wall of tablets and gaming systems that most kids her age would kill for. A salesman approached her, clearly annoyed by her shabby appearance, and Emma quickly moved away. But Emma kept walking, her destination unclear. "Where are you going, little one?" Michael whispered to himself, his coffee growing cold in his hands. Several other customers in the coffee shop had noticed his intense focus on his phone, but he didn't care. Nothing else in the world mattered except watching this small child navigate her first real choice. She stopped at the grocery store. Through the security feed, Michael watched as Emma approached the customer service desk, her small hands gripping the black card like a lifeline. The teenage clerk, probably no more than 16, with bright pink hair and multiple piercings, looked down at her with barely concealed annoyance. "Can I help you?" the girl asked, popping her gum and checking her watch. Emma held up the black card with both hands, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please, miss, can I buy food with this? The nice man said I could buy anything, but I've never used a card like this before." The clerk's eyes widened dramatically when she saw the American Express Centurion card. Her attitude shifted instantly from annoyance to shock. She'd probably never seen one in real life. These cards were reserved for the ultra-wealthy, people who spent hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. Yeah, sure, honey, that card works anywhere." Literally anywhere. The clerk leaned forward, curiosity replacing her earlier hostility. "Where did you get that?" "A nice man gave it to me," Emma replied simply, then asked the question that would change everything. "Can you help me figure out how to buy food for a lot of people?" Michael rushed out of the coffee shop, nearly knocking over a businessman reading his newspaper. He needed to see this with his own eyes, to witness up close what this remarkable child would do with unlimited purchasing power. He positioned himself behind a magazine rack near the grocery store's entrance, close enough to hear Emma's conversation with the deli worker, but hidden enough to remain unnoticed. Emma had made her way to the bread aisle first, and Michael watched as she carefully examined each loaf. She wasn't grabbing randomly, she was comparing prices, reading labels, making deliberate choices. She selected 4 loaves of the cheapest white bread, then moved methodically to the deli counter. "Excuse me, sir," she said politely to the deli worker, a kind-faced man in his 50s. "Can I have enough turkey and ham for many sandwiches, please?" The worker smiled down at her, clearly charmed by her politeness. "How many sandwiches are we talking about, sweetheart?" Emma's little face scrunched in concentration as she counted on her fingers. "Maybe 20? There are a lot of hungry people outside who don't have homes. I want to make sure everyone gets enough." She paused, then added, "And can you make it thick? When you're really hungry, thin sandwiches don't help much." Michael felt his chest tighten. When you're really hungry. This child spoke from experience. The deli worker's expression softened completely. "You know what, honey? Let me give you the premium meat, but I'll charge you for the regular stuff, and I'll make sure you have plenty." "That's very nice of you, sir, but you don't have to do that," Emma replied seriously. "The man gave me this card and said I could buy anything. I think that means I should pay the right price for good food." Michael's coffee cup slipped from his hand, crashing to the floor and shattering. Other customers turned to stare, but he didn't notice. His eyes were glued to the scene unfolding before him. A 7-year-old child was teaching a grown man about integrity and fairness. Emma continued shopping with the focus of someone on a mission. She added jars of peanut butter and jelly, then stopped at the soup aisle. Michael watched as she read the labels carefully, choosing the heartiest, most nutritious options rather than the cheapest. When she reached for cans of beef stew, a store employee approached her. "Are you shopping alone, honey?" the woman asked with concern. "Where are your parents?" "I don't have parents anymore," Emma replied matter-of-factly, "but it's okay. I'm shopping for my friends who are hungry." The employee looked uncertain, clearly not knowing how to handle this situation. "Maybe you should wait for an adult to help you." "I am being helped," Emma said, holding up the black card. "A kind man trusted me to do something important." What kind of 7-year-old speaks with such clarity about trust and responsibility? Michael continued following Emma through the store, his amazement growing with each item she selected. After loading her cart with practical, nutritious food, she made her way to the clothing section. But instead of looking at the children's clothes, she headed straight for the adult section. "Excuse me, ma'am," Emma said to a sales associate, "do you have warm socks? The really thick kind that keep your feet warm when you have to sleep outside?" The associate, a woman in her 30s, with a kind smile, knelt down to Emma's level. "Honey, are you buying these for someone special?" "For lots of people who don't have warm places to sleep," Emma explained. "And maybe some gloves too? It's getting cold, and their hands get hurt when it's cold." Michael watched as the sales associate helped Emma select thermal socks, warm gloves, and even a few knit hats. The woman's eyes kept filling with tears as Emma explained why she needed each item. "Will this be everything, sweetheart?" the cashier asked when Emma finally approached the checkout with her overflowing cart. Emma looked around the store one more time, then back at the black card in her hand. "Can I buy more things?" "The man said I could buy anything. That card has no limit, honey. You can buy whatever your heart desires." Emma's eyes lit up, and for a moment Michael braced himself. "Here it comes," he thought. "Now she'll remember she's just a kid and buy toys and candy like any normal child would." But Emma surprised him once again. "Can I buy some of those hand warmers? The kind you shake up and they get warm, and maybe some Band-Aids and medicine for people who are hurt?" She paused thoughtfully. "Oh, and can I get some of those little shampoo bottles? Some of my friends haven't been able to wash their hair in a long time." The cashier's expression moved from professional politeness to genuine emotion. "Of course, honey. Let me help you find those things." Michael watched in complete amazement as Emma filled her cart with personal care items, first aid supplies, and comfort items. Nothing for herself, everything for others. When she reached the checkout, the total came to $643. "Are you absolutely sure about this purchase?" the cashier asked gently, holding the black card carefully. "This is a lot of money, and you're so young." Emma nodded solemnly. "My mama always said that money is just paper unless you use it to help people." "I want to help people." As Emma struggled to manage all her bags, several employees offered to help her carry them to her destination. She politely accepted their assistance, directing them toward the exit with the confidence of someone much older. Michael followed the small procession outside, his worldview cracking with every step. In 35 years of life, surrounded by wealth and privilege, he'd never encountered anyone, adult or child, who thought of others before themselves when given unlimited power. Emma's first stop was an elderly man sitting near the bus stop, wrapped in newspapers for warmth. "Excuse me, sir," she said politely, approaching him with one of the store employees, still helping her carry bags. "Are you hungry?" "Child, you don't need to worry about an old man like me," said Robert, the elderly homeless veteran Emma had approached. His weathered face, marked by years of harsh weather and harder circumstances, showed surprise and concern as he looked at this small girl with armfuls of groceries and store employees hovering around her. "But I want to worry about you," Emma replied with simple sincerity, directing the employees to set down the bags carefully. "My mama always said that caring about people is what makes us human." Michael, still hidden but close enough to hear every word, pulled out his phone and started recording. Not for evidence or social media, but because he knew that what was happening here was so extraordinary that no one would believe it without proof. Emma began unpacking her bags with the methodical efficiency of someone much older. She handed Robert a thick sandwich, a can of beef stew, warm socks, gloves, hand warmers, and a small bottle of shampoo. "Do you know where other hungry people are? I bought enough for lots of people." Robert's eyes filled with tears as he held the sandwich in his shaking hands. "Sweet child, what's your name?" "Emma." "What's your name, sir?" "Robert. I haven't had someone call me sir in years." His voice broke slightly. "There's a group of us who sleep behind the library. We try to look out for each other, but winter's coming and it's getting harder. Can you take me there?" Emma asked immediately. "I want to share with everyone." As they walked, Robert called out to other homeless individuals they passed. His voice carried across the street with an excitement Michael had never heard from someone living on the streets. "Sarah, Marcus, Tommy, come here. This little angel has food for us." Word spread quickly among the homeless community. By the time they reached the back of the library, a small crowd had gathered. Michael followed them, staying hidden behind cars and trees, but close enough to witness everything. With each person Emma helped, his chest grew tighter, his breathing more labored. These weren't random acts of kindness. There was something deeper happening here, something that challenged every assumption he'd ever made about human nature, about childhood, about what really mattered in life. Behind the library, Emma found 12 people huddled around small fires burning in metal drums. Ages ranged from teenagers to elderly, all wearing the tired, resigned look of those society had forgotten. When Emma appeared with her bags and her small army of new friends, several stood up in surprise. "Everyone, please sit down and get comfortable," Emma said with natural authority that belied her age. "I brought food and warm things for all of us." For the next 2 hours, Emma worked like a tiny commander of compassion. She made sandwiches with the care of a professional chef, opened soup cans and shared them around, distributed warm clothing with attention to each person's specific needs, and, most remarkably, listened to each person's story with the focus and empathy of a trained counselor. She remembered names immediately, asked about their health and circumstances, and somehow made each person feel seen and valued in a way they probably hadn't experienced in years. Michael watched from behind a tree, his hands shaking as he continued recording. A 7-year-old was doing what he, with all his billions and supposed business acumen, had never thought to do, treating homeless people as human beings deserving of dignity, respect, and individual attention. But the moment that broke him completely came when Emma noticed a pregnant teenage girl shivering in the corner, apart from the group. "Are you okay, miss?" Emma asked, approaching the pregnant teenager with the gentle care one might show a wounded bird. The girl couldn't have been more than 16, with hollow eyes and clothes that had seen too many seasons. "I'm fine, sweetie," the girl replied, but her voice trembled with more than just the evening cold. "You don't need to worry about me." Emma studied her carefully, then disappeared into her remaining bags. She pulled out the warmest coat she'd bought, a thick, lined jacket originally intended for one of the older men, and wrapped it around the pregnant girl's shoulders with infinite tenderness. "Babies need to be warm," Emma said simply, adjusting the coat to cover the girl's belly, "and mamas need to be warm too so they can take care of their babies." The pregnant girl, who later introduced herself as Jessica, began to cry quietly. I don't know how to take care of a baby. I don't have anywhere to go and I'm scared. Emma sat down beside her, taking Jessica's hand in her small ones. What's your baby's name? I don't know yet. I don't even know if it's a boy or a girl. That's okay, Emma said seriously. When my mama was pregnant with me, she didn't know either. But she told me she would talk to me every day, even before I was born. She said, babies can hear love. Jessica's tears flowed harder. Your mama sounds like she was special. She was. She's in heaven now, but she taught me that love is the only thing that really matters. Emma's voice grew stronger. She said that when we take care of other people, especially people who are scared or hurt, we're being God's hands and feet on earth. Michael felt his throat close completely. He leaned against the tree for support as Emma continued speaking with wisdom that seemed impossible for someone so young. Jessica, can I tell you something my mama told me? The girl nodded, wiping her eyes. She said that sometimes God gives us hard things to do because He knows we're strong enough to do them, and He always sends helpers. Emma squeezed Jessica's hand. Maybe that's why I'm here tonight. From the circle of homeless friends, others began to speak up. Robert offered to help Jessica find social services. Sarah, an older woman, promised to teach her about baby care. Marcus, a young man who'd been quiet all evening, offered to help her find a safe place to stay. Michael watched in astonishment as this small child had not only fed and clothed these people, but had somehow created a community of care around someone who needed it most. As the evening grew later, Emma stood up and walked to each person in the circle, giving them hugs that lasted longer than politeness required. Thank you for letting me share dinner with you, she said to the group. You made me feel like I have a family again. Emma, Robert called out as she prepared to leave. You'll always have a family here. You've given us something more valuable than food and clothes. You've given us hope. Michael watched as Emma said her final goodbyes, promising to return and check on everyone, especially Jessica and her baby. As she walked away from the library, clutching the empty shopping bags and the black credit card, Michael saw her completely differently than he had just hours before. This wasn't just a homeless child who'd been kind with someone else's money. This was a teacher, a healer, a light in the darkness that he hadn't even realized was surrounding his own life. He followed her as she made her way back toward the original corner where he'd found her. But instead of sitting down with her cardboard sign to continue begging, Emma did something that shattered Michael's heart into a million pieces. She carefully folded the sign and threw it in a nearby trash can. Then she sat down on the cold concrete, pulled her thin jacket tighter around her shoulders, and took out the black credit card. She stared at it for a long moment, then looked up at the darkening sky filled with the first stars of evening. Thank you, God, she whispered, her breath visible in the cold air, for letting me help people today. It felt like being with Mama again. Michael stepped out from his hiding place, his decision made. He couldn't pretend to be a stranger anymore, couldn't continue this charade of testing her. Emma looked up as he approached, and her face lit up with genuine joy and recognition. Mister, I was hoping I'd see you again. She held out the credit card with both hands, offering it back to him like a sacred object. Thank you for letting me borrow this. I bought food and warm things for my friends. Michael knelt down beside her, his voice thick with emotion he hadn't felt since childhood. Emma, that card is yours to keep. You can use it any time you want, for anything you need. Emma's eyes widened in wonder. Really? I can buy more food for people? And maybe help Jessica find a place for her baby. You can buy anything you want, sweetheart. Anything at all. Emma was quiet for a moment, her 7-year-old mind processing this incredible gift. Then she looked directly into Michael's eyes with a maturity and clarity that took his breath away. Mister, can I ask you something important? Anything. Why did you really give me this card? Were you testing me to see what kind of person I am? Michael's mouth fell open. How could she possibly understand what he'd been doing? Emma continued, her voice gentle but knowing. My mama always said that God sometimes sends people into our lives to teach us things we need to learn. Maybe you needed to learn something today too. In that moment, Michael Thompson, billionaire, CEO, master of the universe, realized that he was the student. And this 7-year-old child was the teacher he'd been searching for his entire life without even knowing it. But what Emma said next would change everything. Mister, I have something important to tell you. But first, can you help me with something? Jessica back there needs to go to the hospital to make sure her baby is okay, but she's scared because she doesn't have money or insurance. Can we help her? Michael's world tilted on its axis. After everything this child had already done, after the miracle he'd just witnessed, she was still thinking about others, still putting someone else's needs before her own comfort and safety. Of course we can help her, Emma. We can help her with everything she needs. Emma smiled, but then her expression grew serious again. Good. Now I can tell you the important thing. She looked up at him with those ancient, knowing eyes that seemed to see straight through to his soul. I know who you are, Mr. Thompson. Michael's blood ran cold. You know who I am. Emma nodded solemnly, her small hand still clutching the black credit card. You're Michael Thompson. You own Thompson Technologies. Your picture was in the newspaper at the hospital when my mama was sick. The world seemed to stop spinning. Michael felt dizzy as he knelt on the cold sidewalk beside this remarkable child. Emma, why was my picture in the hospital? Because you donated money to build the new children's cancer ward, Emma replied, her voice soft with memory. The nurses showed my mama the article. They said a very rich man wanted to help sick children get better. Michael's throat constricted. He remembered that donation, $50 million, given mostly for tax benefits and positive publicity. He'd attended one ribbon-cutting ceremony, posed for a few photos, and never thought about it again. My mama was so happy when she saw that article, Emma continued, her eyes growing distant. She was very sick, and the doctor said the new machines in the ward might help her. She kept your picture on her bedside table and prayed for you every night. She prayed for me? Michael's voice came out as barely a whisper. Every single night. She said that people who help children must have good hearts, but that sometimes rich people are very lonely. She prayed that God would send you friends and family who really loved you. Emma paused, studying his face carefully. Mama was right, wasn't she? You are lonely. The question hit Michael like a physical blow. In all his success, surrounded by employees, business partners, and social acquaintances, he couldn't remember the last time someone had asked about his loneliness. He couldn't remember the last time someone had cared enough to ask. Yes, he admitted, the words scraping his throat raw. I am very lonely. Emma stood up and without hesitation wrapped her thin arms around his neck in a hug that felt like coming home. You don't have to be lonely anymore, Mr. Thompson. God sent me to be your friend. Michael held this small, fierce child and felt 35 years of carefully constructed walls crumble around him. When had he last cried? When had he last felt this kind of pure, unconditional acceptance? Emma, he managed to say, your mother sounds like she was an incredible woman. She was. She always said that God puts people in our lives for reasons, even if we don't understand why at first. Emma pulled back to look at him seriously. I think maybe God put you in my life tonight because you needed to remember what love feels like, and maybe he put me in your life because I needed to remember that there are still good people in the world. Michael felt something fundamental shift inside his chest. This child, this wise, generous, miraculous child, was speaking truths that his Harvard MBA and decades of business experience had never taught him. Emma, where are you supposed to sleep tonight? Her face grew sad. Mrs. Peterson said not to come back unless I brought money. I usually try to find a safe doorway when it gets really cold. The thought of this child sleeping on the streets, especially after what she'd just done for others, was unbearable. That's not happening. Not tonight. Not ever again. But Mr. Thompson, I don't have anywhere else to go. Michael looked into her trusting eyes and made a decision that would change both their lives forever. Yes, you do. You're coming home with me. Michael's penthouse apartment occupied the entire top floor of Chicago's most exclusive building. As the private elevator opened directly into his living space, Emma stepped out and gasped. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city lights. Original artwork worth millions adorned the walls, and Italian marble floors reflected the soft glow of designer lighting. "Mr. Thompson," Emma whispered, "your house is like a palace." But as Emma explored the space, Michael saw it through her eyes and felt ashamed. Despite the luxury, the apartment felt cold, sterile, unlived in. There were no family photos, no personal touches, no signs that anyone actually called this place home. "Are you hungry?" Michael asked, opening his rarely used refrigerator to find only expensive wine, takeout containers, and bottled water. "A little," Emma admitted. "But Mr. Thompson, what about Jessica? You promised we'd help her." Michael had almost forgotten. In his amazement at discovering Emma's connection to his past, he'd temporarily lost sight of the pregnant teenager still sleeping rough behind the library. "You're absolutely right. Let me make some calls." For the next hour, Michael worked his phone like the CEO he was. He arranged for a medical team to find Jessica and bring her to the city's best hospital. He secured a furnished apartment for her and the baby, with rent paid for 2 years. He arranged job training and ongoing medical care. By the time he finished, he'd spent more on one homeless teenager than most people made in a lifetime. Emma listened to every call, watching him with growing amazement. "You can really do all that? Just by talking on the phone?" "When you have money and connections, you can solve a lot of problems," Michael replied, then paused. "But I've never used them to solve problems like this before." "Why not?" The simple question hung in the air. Why hadn't he? He'd had the power to help people his entire adult life, but he'd been too focused on building his empire, too convinced that charity was something you did for tax write-offs and public relations. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe because no one ever showed me what real kindness looked like." Emma nodded sagely. "My mama said that sometimes people need teachers. Maybe I'm supposed to teach you about helping people, and you're supposed to teach me about..." "What?" Michael looked around his sterile palace and realized he had no idea what he could possibly teach this child that she didn't already know better than he did. Their conversation was interrupted by the doorman's call from downstairs. "Mr. Thompson? There's a woman here claiming to be a social worker. She's asking about a child named Emma." Michael's blood turned to ice. "Tell her I'll be right down." "What's wrong?" Emma asked, seeing his expression. "Someone's looking for you. Probably Mrs. Peterson called social services." Michael knelt down to her level. "Emma, I need you to know something. I'm not going to let anyone take you away or hurt you. Do you trust me?" Emma looked into his eyes with that ancient wisdom. "Yes, Mr. Thompson, I trust you." As they rode the elevator down to the lobby, Michael's mind raced through legal possibilities. He had lawyers, influence, resources. Surely he could protect one small child. But as the doors opened and he saw the stern-faced woman waiting with 2 police officers, he realized that money might not be enough to fix this problem. "Mr. Thompson," the woman said, stepping forward, "I'm Margaret Foster from Child Protective Services. We've received reports about an adult man taking an unaccompanied minor from the streets. I'm going to need you to step away from the child. "Ma'am, there's been a misunderstanding," Michael began, but Margaret Foster cut him off with a raised hand. "Sir, I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've heard every story, every excuse. A homeless child doesn't just end up in a billionaire's penthouse without something inappropriate happening." Her voice was sharp, professional, completely unmoved by Michael's status or wealth. Emma stepped closer to Michael, slipping her small hand into his. "Miss Foster, Mr. Thompson didn't do anything bad. He helped me help other people, and now he's helping me. Sweetheart, adults sometimes make children think they're helping when they're really not. That's why we have rules to protect kids like you." Margaret's tone softened when addressing Emma, but her eyes remained fixed on Michael with deep suspicion. One of the police officers stepped forward. "Mr. Thompson, we're going to need you to come to the station for questioning. Standard procedure in cases involving minors." Michael felt panic rising in his chest. "Officers, surely we can handle this reasonably. I was simply trying to help Emma find safe shelter for the night." By taking her to your private residence?" Margaret's eyebrows rose. "Mr. Thompson, even if your intentions were good, what you did was kidnapping. You removed a minor from her legal guardian without permission or proper procedures." "Mrs. Peterson isn't a legal guardian," Emma spoke up, her voice stronger than Michael had heard it all day. "She's just a foster mom who doesn't want me anymore. She told me to go away and not come back unless I brought money." Margaret knelt down to Emma's level, her expression gentling. "Honey, I know foster care can be difficult, but there are proper ways to handle these situations. Adults can't just take children home, no matter how much they think they're helping." "But he wasn't taking me," Emma insisted. "I asked to stay with him because he's lonely, and I'm lonely, and lonely people should take care of each other." Michael watched the interaction, feeling helpless despite all his power and influence. How could he explain to these people what he'd witnessed tonight? How could he make them understand that Emma wasn't just any child, that what had happened between them was something extraordinary? "Miss Foster," he said carefully, "before you make any decisions, there's something you need to know. Emma spent today using my credit card to buy food and supplies for homeless people. She didn't buy a single thing for herself." "What kind of 7-year-old does that?" Margaret's expression didn't change. "Mr. Thompson, I appreciate that you may have observed some kind gesture, but that doesn't change the fact that you violated multiple laws tonight. Children belong in proper homes with proper supervision, not in bachelor apartments with men they just met." "He's not just some man I met," Emma said, her voice growing frustrated. "His money helped build the place where my mama died. She prayed for him every night. God sent me to help him remember how to love people." For the first time, Margaret looked uncertain. "Emma, what do you mean about your mother?" Emma's eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained steady. "My mama died in the children's cancer ward that Mr. Thompson paid for. She said that people who help sick children must have good hearts, but that rich people are sometimes very sad and lonely. She made me promise that if I ever met someone rich and lonely, I would try to be their friend." The room fell silent. Michael saw something shift in Margaret's expression, a crack in her professional armor. "Even if that's true, sweetheart, there are procedures we have to follow. Mr. Thompson can't just decide to take care of you." "Why not?" Emma asked with heartbreaking simplicity. "He has a big house and lots of money, and I don't have anywhere else to go. Mrs. Peterson doesn't want me, and he does. Why can't people who want to take care of each other just take care of each other?" Michael found his voice. "Miss Foster, what would it take? Legally, properly, what would it take for me to become Emma's guardian?" Margaret studied his face carefully. "Background checks, home studies, court hearings, financial assessments. The process takes months, sometimes years. And Mr. Thompson, you're a single man with no experience raising children. The courts favor stable family environments." Then what happens to Emma tonight? Michael's voice cracked with emotion. She goes back to a foster home where she's unwanted, back to the streets. She goes into emergency foster care while we sort this out. Emma's grip on Michael's hand tightened. Mr. Thompson, will I see you again? Before he could answer, Margaret's phone rang. She stepped aside to take the call, speaking in low, urgent tones. When she returned, her expression was troubled. Mr. Thompson, there's been a development. We just received a call about your activities tonight. Someone reported seeing you give a credit card to a homeless child, then follow her around the city. The caller claimed you were grooming her. Michael's heart sank. Who would make such an accusation? The caller identified herself as Grace Peterson, Emma's foster mother. Emma's face went white. Mrs. Peterson called, but she told me to leave and never come back. Margaret Foster's expression hardened as she studied both Michael and Emma. Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Peterson claims that Emma has a history of lying and manipulating adults for money and attention. She says the child is disturbed, possibly dangerous. That's not true. Emma's voice rose in panic. Mrs. Peterson is mean to me. She locks me in the closet when I make noise, and she takes the money that's supposed to be for my food and clothes. Emma, Margaret said gently but firmly, children sometimes exaggerate when they're upset. Michael felt rage building in his chest. Miss Foster, you've spent 15 minutes with Emma. I've spent hours. This child is the most selfless, honest person I've ever met. She used unlimited purchasing power to feed homeless people. What disturbed child does that? Mr. Thompson, you're emotionally involved now. That's exactly why we have protocols. One of the police officers stepped forward. Sir, we're going to need you to come with us. There are serious allegations being made. But before anyone could move, Emma did something that stunned everyone in the room. She pulled out her phone, a battered device that Michael hadn't even noticed she had, and began scrolling through videos. Wait, she said urgently. I can prove Mrs. Peterson is lying. She held up the phone, showing a video of herself from earlier that day, sitting on the corner with her cardboard sign. The timestamp showed it was recorded at 11:47 a.m. I make videos sometimes, Emma explained, her voice shaking but determined. So I can remember my mama's voice when she taught me things. But this morning I recorded Mrs. Peterson being mean to me. She swiped to another video, recorded just that morning. Mrs. Peterson's voice came through the phone speaker, sharp and cruel. I'm sick of feeding you, you little brat. If you can't earn your keep, then get out. Don't come back here unless you bring me money, and don't you dare tell anyone I kicked you out, or I'll make sure they put you somewhere much worse. The room fell silent, except for the sound of Mrs. Peterson's continued verbal abuse coming from the phone. Emma's small face was visible in the corner of the video, tears streaming down her cheeks as she tried to reason with the woman. Please, Mrs. Peterson, I'll be good. I won't break anything else. I'll try harder to be quiet. You're a burden, Emma. Your mother should have kept her legs closed instead of bringing another welfare baby into the world. Now I'm stuck with you until the state finds someone else stupid enough to take you. Margaret Foster's face had gone pale. Emma, how long has Mrs. Peterson talked to you like this? Since I came to live with her 8 months ago. After Mama died. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. She only wanted me because the state pays her money for foster kids. But she says I eat too much and cost too much. Michael knelt down beside Emma, his heart breaking. Why didn't you tell me about the videos earlier? Because grown-ups usually don't believe kids when we tell them bad things about other grown-ups. They think we're making it up or being dramatic. Emma looked at Margaret with those ancient, weary eyes. But you can't say I'm making this up now, can you, Miss Foster? Margaret was quiet for a long moment, clearly processing what she'd heard. Emma, do you have other videos like this? Emma nodded sadly. Lots of them. Mrs. Peterson is mean to all the kids she has. She takes our food money and spends it on herself. She locks us in rooms when she has friends over. She tells people we're bad kids so they won't believe us if we complain. One of the police officers leaned over to Margaret. "Ma'am, if there's evidence of abuse and neglect, shouldn't we be investigating the foster mother instead of Mr. Thompson?" Michael felt a surge of protectiveness so strong it surprised him. "Emma, I want you to know something. You will never, ever have to go back to Mrs. Peterson. I don't care what I have to do or how long it takes. You're safe now." Emma looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "Do you really mean that?" "I mean it with everything I have." Margaret Foster closed her phone and looked at Michael with new eyes. "Mr. Thompson, given these new circumstances, I think we need to have a different conversation. But first, we need to ensure Emma's immediate safety." "What does that mean?" Emma asked. "It means," Margaret said softly, "that you're not going back to Mrs. Peterson tonight, or any night." Emma's face lit up with the first real smile Michael had seen from her all day. "Does that mean I can stay with Mr. Thompson?" Margaret hesitated. "It's complicated, but yes, at least for tonight, while we sort this out properly." As the police officers prepared to leave, one of them turned back to Michael. "Sir, you should know. What that child did today, feeding all those homeless people, that's already spread through the department. Half the guys want to meet her, and the other half want to adopt her themselves." After the officials left, Michael and Emma stood alone in his lobby, both of them emotionally drained, but somehow lighter than they'd been hours before. "Mr. Thompson," Emma said quietly, "are you really going to try to keep me?" Michael knelt down and took her small hands in his. "Emma, I'm going to try to become the man your mother prayed I would be. And if I succeed, then yes, I'm going to try to keep you forever." 3 weeks had passed since that extraordinary night, and Michael's entire world had transformed in ways he never could have imagined. His sterile penthouse now bore the signs of a child's presence: colouring books on the coffee table, a pink backpack by the door, children's cereal in the kitchen cabinets. But more than the physical changes, Emma had brought life to spaces that had been empty for years. Michael sat in a lawyer's office, reviewing the mountain of paperwork required for emergency guardianship. Across from him, James Morrison, Chicago's most expensive family attorney, shuffled through documents with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd navigated these waters many times before. "Mr. Thompson, I have to be honest with you," James said, removing his glasses to clean them. "Your case is unusual, to say the least. Most single men seeking to adopt don't start by taking a homeless child home from the streets." "Most single men don't meet children like Emma," Michael replied, his voice firm with conviction. "The social workers are impressed by the home environment you've created, and Emma's psychological evaluation shows she's thriving in your care. Dr. Sarah Chen says she's never seen a child recover from trauma so quickly." James paused, studying Michael's face. "But the court will want to understand your long-term intentions. This isn't just about providing temporary shelter." Michael had been asking himself the same question for weeks. When he'd first brought Emma home, it had been an impulsive act of protection. But watching her slowly bloom in an environment of safety and unconditional love had awakened something in him that he'd never known existed. "James, I spent 35 years building a company, accumulating wealth, achieving every goal I thought mattered. But I was dying inside, slowly, quietly, completely. Emma didn't just save herself that night. She saved me too. The court will need more than emotional testimony, Michael. They'll want to see concrete evidence that you can provide stable, long-term care for a child who's experienced significant trauma." The door opened, and Emma bounced into the room, her face glowing with excitement. In the 3 weeks since leaving the streets, she'd gained weight. Her eyes had lost their haunted quality, and she moved with the natural energy of a healthy 7-year-old. "Mr. Thompson, guess what happened at school today?" She climbed into the chair beside him, chattering enthusiastically about her new teacher, her reading progress, and the friends she was making. James watched the interaction with professional interest. "Emma, can I ask you something? Do you understand what these meetings are about?" Emma nodded seriously. "You're trying to decide if Mr. Thompson can be my forever daddy. Miss Foster explained it to me. And how do you feel about that?" "Happy," she said simply. "Mr. Thompson takes care of me the way my mama did. He reads me stories, and he makes sure I eat vegetables, and he sits with me when I have bad dreams about being hungry." Michael felt his chest tighten with emotion. In 3 weeks, this child had taught him more about love than he'd learned in the rest of his life combined. "Emma," James continued gently, "sometimes children feel they have to say what they think adults want to hear. You can tell me the truth about how you really feel." Emma looked at James with that startling maturity that had first captured Michael's attention. "Mr. Morrison, when my real mama was dying, she told me that God would send someone to take care of me. She said I would know the right person because they would love me, not because they had to, but because they wanted to." She turned to look at Michael with shining eyes. "Mr. Thompson loves me because he wants to, and I love him because he has a good heart that just needed someone to remind him how to use it." James made notes in his file, clearly moved by Emma's words. "Mr. Thompson, there's something else we need to discuss. Mrs. Peterson's situation." Michael's expression darkened. "What about her?" "She's being investigated for neglect and financial fraud. Apparently, Emma's videos led to other children coming forward. The investigation has revealed a pattern of abuse spanning several years." Emma's face grew serious. "Are the other kids okay?" "They're being placed in better homes," James assured her. "Your bravery in recording those videos may have saved other children from what you experienced." Michael reached over and squeezed Emma's hand. "You're incredibly brave, sweetheart. My mama always said that when we see something wrong, we have a choice. We can pretend we don't see it, or we can try to fix it. I wanted to fix it." After Emma left to play in the reception area, James leaned forward, his expression serious. "Michael, I have to ask, are you prepared for this long term? Raising a child isn't just about providing material support. Emma has experienced trauma that may surface in unexpected ways. There will be challenges you can't solve with money." Michael thought about the past 3 weeks, the nightmares that still woke Emma sometimes, the moments when she hoarded food because she was afraid of being hungry again, the way she flinched when adults raised their voices. But he also thought about her laughter, her insights, the way she'd transformed not just his apartment but his entire perspective on life. "James, a month ago, I thought success meant building the biggest company and accumulating the most wealth. Emma taught me that real success means building something that matters: family, love, connection. I'm not just prepared to be her father, I need to be her father. And the company, your work," Michael smiled. "I've restructured my schedule. I work from home 3 days a week now. I've hired additional executives to handle travel, and Emma comes to the office with me sometimes. The employees love her." "That's quite a change." "The best change I've ever made." Michael stood up, his decision crystallizing completely. "James, whatever it takes, background checks, home studies, court appearances, I want to adopt Emma. Not just guardianship, full adoption." James nodded, making more notes. "Then we'll need to prepare for a long process. But Michael, based on what I've observed today, I think you have a very strong case." As they prepared to leave, Emma ran back into the room. "Mr. Thompson, can we visit our friends at the library today? Jessica had her baby, and I want to meet him." Michael's heart swelled. Even in her new life of safety and comfort, Emma hadn't forgotten the people who needed help. "Of course we can, sweetheart." Walking out of the law office with Emma's hand in his, Michael realized that the little girl had been right from the beginning. God had brought them together, not to test Emma, but to save them both. But their biggest test was still ahead of them. Tomorrow they would face the family court judge who would decide their future together. The Cook County family court was intimidating even to someone with Michael's wealth and confidence. Dark wood paneling, high ceilings, and the imposing bench where Judge Patricia Williams would decide their fate created an atmosphere that made both Michael and Emma feel small and vulnerable. Emma sat beside him in her best dress, a simple blue outfit they'd picked out together for this crucial day. Her hair was neatly braided, and she clutched a folder of drawings she'd made, wanting to show the judge what their life together looked like. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Williams," the bailiff announced. Judge Williams was a stern-looking woman in her 60s, with graying hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see through pretense and straight to the truth. She'd been presiding over family court for 23 years and had a reputation for putting children's welfare above all other considerations. "Please be seated," she said, reviewing the thick file before her. "We're here today to consider the petition of Michael Thompson for full adoption of Emma Marie Collins. Mr. Morrison, you may present your case." James Morrison stood and outlined their argument methodically. He presented character witnesses, financial records proving Michael's ability to provide for Emma, psychological evaluations showing Emma's remarkable progress, and testimony from teachers about her academic and social development. But Michael knew that none of the paperwork would matter as much as what Judge Williams saw when she looked at them together. "Mr. Thompson," Judge Williams said, addressing Michael directly, "this court has reviewed your petition with considerable interest. Your case is highly unusual, a single man with no previous experience with children seeking to adopt a child he met under extraordinary circumstances." "Yes, Your Honor. The social worker's report indicates that you've made significant lifestyle changes to accommodate Emma's needs. Can you tell me why you're willing to make such sacrifices?" Michael felt Emma's small hand slip into his for encouragement. "Your Honor, I wouldn't call them sacrifices. Before Emma came into my life, I had everything money could buy, but I had nothing that truly mattered. Emma taught me the difference between success and significance. She didn't just need a home, I needed a family." Judge Williams made notes, then turned her attention to Emma. "Emma, I understand you have something you'd like to share with the court." Emma stood up carefully, holding her folder. "Yes, ma'am, Your Honor. I made some pictures to show you what my life is like now." She opened her folder and pulled out the first drawing, a crayon picture of two stick figures holding hands in front of a tall building. "This is me and Mr. Thompson at his house. See, I drew windows because he has lots of windows, and now I can see the whole city from my room." Judge Williams smiled slightly. "It's a very nice drawing, Emma." Emma pulled out another picture. "This one is us reading books together. Mr. Thompson reads me stories every night, even when he's tired from work, and he lets me pick the stories sometimes." She continued through her drawings, each one showing a different aspect of their life together: cooking breakfast, visiting the library, friends, Emma doing homework while Michael worked on his computer nearby. "And this last one," Emma said, holding up a drawing that made Michael's throat tight with emotion, "is my family tree for school. See, I drew my mama in heaven watching over us, and me and Mr. Thompson holding hands on earth. My teacher said families don't have to look the same to be real families." Judge Williams studied the drawing carefully. "Emma, can you tell me how you feel about Mr. Thompson becoming your official father?" Emma's face grew serious with the gravity of the question. "Your Honor, when my real mama was dying, she told me that sometimes God sends people into our lives at exactly the right time. She said I would know my new family because they would love me, not because they had to, but because they wanted to." She turned to look at Michael, her eyes shining. "Mr. Thompson loves me because he wants to. And he takes care of me the way my mama did. He makes sure I eat vegetables, and he helps me with homework, and he holds me when I have bad dreams. But most important, he lets me keep helping other people like my mama taught me. What do you mean by helping other people? Emma brightened. We visit Jessica and her baby every week. Mr. Thompson is paying for her college so she can get a good job. And we bring food to our friends at the library every Saturday. And Mr. Thompson started a program at his company where they hire people who don't have homes and help them get back on their feet. Michael felt a surge of pride. Emma was right. Her influence had spread far beyond their personal relationship. Inspired by her example, he'd restructured part of his business to create employment opportunities for homeless individuals, complete with transitional housing and support services. Judge Williams turned back to Michael. Mr. Thompson, I have to ask a difficult question. Emma has experienced significant trauma in her young life. Are you prepared for the possibility that challenges may arise as she grows older? Adoption is a permanent commitment, not just during the easy times. Your Honor, 3 months ago I thought parenting would be about providing material stability and educational opportunities. Emma has taught me that it's really about showing up every day with love, patience, and consistency. Whatever challenges we face, we'll face them together. Judge Williams was quiet for several long minutes, reviewing her notes and studying both Michael and Emma. The courtroom was silent, except for the ticking of the large clock on the wall. Finally, she looked up. In 23 years on this bench, I've seen thousands of adoption cases. I've learned to recognize when a placement is driven by genuine love versus obligation, convenience, or other motivations. Michael held his breath. What I see before me today is a child who has transformed not just her own circumstances, but the life of the adult seeking to adopt her. Emma, your wisdom and compassion would be remarkable in someone twice your age. Mr. Thompson, your willingness to reshape your entire life around a child's needs demonstrates a level of commitment that this court finds admirable. She picked up her gavel. It is the judgment of this court that the adoption petition is approved. Mr. Thompson, you are hereby granted full parental rights and responsibilities for Emma Marie Collins, who shall henceforth be known as Emma Marie Thompson. The gavel came down with a sound that echoed through the courtroom like a bell of freedom. Emma threw her arms around Michael's neck as he lifted her up, both of them crying tears of joy and relief. Around them, the small group of supporters, James Morrison, Margaret Foster, and even some of Emma's new friends from school, erupted in quiet applause. "Daddy," Emma whispered in his ear, trying out the word that was now legally and permanently true. "Yes, sweetheart, Mama was right. God did send someone to take care of me, and I think maybe he sent me to take care of you too." As they left the courthouse together, officially and forever a family, Michael realized that the little girl had been teaching him from the very beginning. She'd shown him that real wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the lives you touch. Real success wasn't about what you accomplish, but about who you become in the process. That evening, as Michael tucked Emma into bed in what was now permanently her room, she looked up at him with those wise, ancient eyes that had first captured his attention. "Daddy, do you know what the best part about today was?" "What's that, sweetheart?" "Now I get to call you Daddy forever, and you get to call me your daughter forever. We're stuck with each other." Michael laughed, his heart so full it felt like it might burst. "Emma Thompson, being stuck with you is the greatest privilege of my life." As he turned off her light and closed her door, Michael reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them together. A simple test of character had revealed the greatest teacher he'd ever encountered. A homeless child had shown him the way home. And tomorrow they would wake up as a family and continue building something more valuable than any fortune, a legacy of love that would ripple outward far beyond anything Michael had ever imagined possible. Some stories end with people getting what they want. The best stories end with people becoming who they were meant to be. This was one of the best stories of all.